As I announced at the end of my last update, I wanted to add a spare wheel and a shelf to the trunk. You can see what it should look like on this pic of the actual car. The kit doesn't provide a spare wheel nor is there a shelf included, so I had to build them from scratch. I said it before, the hood of the trunk wasn't meant to be displayed open on this kit. I never tried building a wheel before, and that's the reason why I had to keep it as simple as possible. Doing it as cheap as possible was mandatory too, so I used a piece of pizza package. I used the cap of a bottle of window paint to draw the circles onto the cardboard. It had just the right diameter for the task. I cut out 12 discs of 20mm and made rings out of 2 of them. One of the smaller discs was needed for the center, but I had to cut it to a slightly smaller diameter. I glued the discs together with the 2 rings as top layers. The smaller disc was glued into the center of the rings. As usual for most of my paperwork, I used PVA glue. Then I sanded the spare wheel into a realistic looking shape. Here you can see it before and after sanding. The problem was that the wheel wouldn't fit into my scratch-built wheel well. I had to build the wheel within the limitations of the kit. Building a smaller wheel wasn't an option because it would have been too obvious. I decided to use the wheel I had built but cut off some cardboard of the rear and the sides to make it fit into the well. Since the wheel had to be covered with the tarp, I hoped that this bit of surgery wouldn't be visible. I planned to use tissue paper and diluted PVA glue. The oldest trick in armor modeling, although it seems to be new for younger modelers. Cardboard and diluted PVA glue are a dangerous mixture. The cardboard would lose its shape. To avoid that, I painted the cardboard wheel with automotive primer. The tarp had to be put on and shaped with the wheel in its well. To keep the tissue paper from sticking to the trunk, I used transparent kitchen foil. Pay credit where it's due. Simon Kemp has shown this several times. I'm sure I would have thought of doing it myself, but he did it before me. Here you see how I covered the wheel. At first I glued the top on top of the wheel. Then I cut the tissue paper to size and covered the rest. Some pics to show you the position of the shelf I had to build next. Doing the template for the shelf was a bit involved, to say the least. Well, I've got enough cardboard to do it that way. Here you see the brush strokes I left on the blue paint. I used diluted life color but painted it on top of enamel paint. That didn't work at all, and I'll use an acrylic primer for the interior to avoid this mistake. Finally, here's a piece of 0.5mm styrene sheet I cut it accordingly to the final version of the template. To keep it level, I reinforced it with strips of styrene. One strip was glued to the front edge to give me a larger surface to glue the vertical edge to. rear edge of the shelf was sanded a little flatter to conform with the rounded shape of the trunk's floor. I wanted to glue a piece of carpet on top of the shelf. Fine grit sanding paper was perfect to represent it. I used contact glue to assemble shelf and carpet. I was very happy with the result because dry fitting revealed that I did a precise job here. The clamp for the spare wheel still has to be built, but I'll do this for my next update.
Irgendwo auf der Welt gibt's ein bisschen Seligkeit und ich träum davon schon lange, lange Zeit. Wenn ich wüsste, wo das ist, ging ich in...
And then it was time for a bit of color. The underside of the shelf and the spare wheel were primed by brush with automotive primer. Then I painted the shelf with the Tamiya XF10 flat brown and the wheel with the Tamiya XF51 khaki drab. After the paints had cured, I used diluted Tamiya X19 smoke as a wash. This has become one of my favorite washes. Dry brushing will follow in the next update. Since I had a lot of that wash, I also applied it to the Opel's wheels. The seats received this wash around the crevices. I wouldn't call it a pin wash, and here you can see what it looks like before feathering the wash. I didn't notice this trim before I watched a couple of YouTube videos on the Opel Admiral. I guess I chose the most complicated way to make it. I used soft steel wire and straightened it by rolling it under this block of wood. Then I squeezed it with this pair of pliers till it was flat enough. Then it was sanded, polished and bent with the tools you see here. The first dry fitting revealed that there was more bending to do. Especially the tips of the trim had to be bent into the correct shape. Done.
Auf der Welt fängt der Weg zum Himmel an, irgendwo, irgendwie, irgendwann.
Dry fitting isn't easy with this small piece, and I can only hope I manage to glue it into place once the seats are painted up completely. I haven't decided yet if I remove all the tiny scratches of the trim or leave it as it is. Scratches would be normal for a car that's used by soldiers. No scratches would look better. Well, you'll see how I decided in my next update. That's it for now.
Was sind schon Worte im Augenblick, was ein versprochenes Glück. Weil ich dich liebe, glaub ich an dich, doch willst das Schicksal, vergisst du mich, das darf nicht sein, tausendmal nein. Komm zurück, ich war